Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's AMA Members Only webcast. The AMA provides you with this special webcast as one of the many benefits we offer to our members. As a member of the AMA, the benefits go far beyond today's presentation to professional development opportunities, access to the AMA's Marketing Career Network, AMA Connect, popular networking opportunities via our professional chapters, and the latest thinking and emerging trends via our website and publications. So before we get started, I'd just like to go ahead and go over a couple of housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and will be made available to you via email along with a PDF of today's slide presentation. If you have technical or content-related questions today, you can ask them at any time by using the chat box that's located on the left-hand side of your screen. And last but not least, we invite you to continue this conversation on Twitter by adding or searching for the hashtag AMAMOW. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Katrina Padron. Katrina is the president of Padron Social Marketing, which is a relationship-driven social media agency specializing in fusing social marketing with your team. She and her team want to help you achieve your goals. And prior to launching Padron Social Marketing, Katrina was an award-winning director of marketing for Heart of America Group, a multi-million-dollar development company that owns and operates restaurants, hotels, retail, and office space. She is an active member in the American Advertising Federation, AAF, and has a master's degree in sociology from DePaul University, Chicago. She's also a frequent contributor to Social Media Today, where she shares insights on social media strategies that get results. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Katrina.
Hi, thank you for that introduction. There are a lot of social media strategies that really don't work very well, and I think in the marketing world maybe we know some of them. I'll kind of point out some of them today, but my job is actually to train companies on social media strategies that work, meaning strategies that bring in more ROI to the organization. I was a director of marketing for 5 years at a large hospitality company where I focused on online marketing and social media. During this time, I found a lot of ways to make an impact online, build top-of-mind awareness, and get customers to come back more often. And I'm sure you're on this webcast to find out how to do that. So I will share the secrets to a successful social media campaign, but before I let you in on that secret, I actually want to talk just a little bit about how social your brand is. And we have this new buzzword, and it's called social brand. And I know in the social media space we get a lot of buzzwords right now, so we kind of need to drill down and talk about what that means to have a social brand. So the first thing I want to do is ask you a question, and this will be very interactive. So we'll start with who in your company currently handles your social media. And let's take about 30 or 45 seconds, and you should see a poll on your page, and you can just fill in, you can just select the box of who handles. So is it an intern, is it an agency, corporate, no one, marketing, or maybe a mix of departments? Okay, and these are coming in. Oh, I'll share the results here in 1 second. Marketing is really in the lead here for that. All right, let's take maybe just 5 more seconds. Let a couple more people enter. Okay, so here's where, wow, this is really interesting. This is what I get a lot when I present and when I ask this question, but I love seeing the little graph. So marketing is handling a lot of social media for the various companies that are represented here on this call. And I think it's really interesting. I actually don't see many interns on that are handling social media, so I'm kind of surprised with that number. That's usually who it kind of goes to. Okay, so good. Thank you for doing that. And then we won't do a poll on this, but my next question, and you can just jot this down on a paper or just kind of think of it in your own mind, but what training is this person given, the person who's handling your social media? Are they given any sort of training? Do they get to attend conferences? Do they go to webinars like what you're on today? Are they given special trade magazines, or is there no training? Think of how that situation plays out for your company. Now, before we go into reason number one, and I start sharing this secret that will save you money, give you more control, and let you ramp things up or down as you need depending on things like product launches or buy-in cycles and special events, I want to share my one-liner that I am just passionate about, and that is I passionately believe that your best social media team is your current workforce. So let's dive in. So reason number one that I think your best social media team is your current workforce is that social media is not a megaphone. It's a telephone. So there's value in listening and engaging, and two-way dialogues are good. So let's step back for a second, and we know that most of our companies are on social media to have a bigger presence, but then at the end of the day, we know we want to sell more of our products or services because we are a business. So I guess the best way to illustrate this is to picture one of your salespeople picking up the phone and calling a prospect. And they pick up the phone and they say, "Hi, so-and-so, it's Katrina. I have a new product. Do you want to buy it?" Well, nobody does that, right? When your sales team actually makes a call like that, they ask questions to find out if there's a need for your product or service. So questions like, what are you doing, and how is that working? And that is the way to frame how to use social media, rather than a platform to constantly send out pitches and self-promotional posts. You know, we need to look at it as a way to engage and listen. And when it comes to social media, we actually, I think we accidentally do this all the time, where we use it as the megaphone to send out just tons of self-promotional posts, and then we kind of get a little bit surprised when it doesn't work. But there's so much value in listening and engaging. And when we think about it, listening and engaging is what makes social media so special in the first place. Like, that is what we're all excited about from the beginning. And there are special questions you can ask to get a lot of engagement and get a better understanding from your fans. We look at this quote from Chip Bell. He's an author, speaker, and consultant. And he says, "Effective questioning brings insight, which fuels curiosity, which cultivates wisdom." Now, if we are absolutely wise and have a great understanding on our fans, on our prospects, we are so much more likely to be able to engage with them and to keep those leads warm during the buy-in cycle. So let's take a look at ways different departments in your company can actually use social media, ways that they can listen and engage. So we'll first start with customer service. And the best thing for customer service to do is take a look at all of your social networks and find out what questions people are asking that you as a company can answer. That's going to solve a lot of problems. And the next thing is, what problems are people having that you could solve? What opportunities do you as a company have to respond and participate? And when you take those things and you effectively answer questions, and your company is very active at trying to help people through their problems, you're going to be seen as a company with really great customer service. And I actually had this choice a couple weeks ago. I was looking at a new CRM program, and there were two different companies. They were both, the cost was minimal. It was literally $5 a month for both companies. But I did a little research on customer service. And I just went to their Facebook page and their Twitter page, and that was all my research included. But one of them had amazing customer service. And so my choice was obvious, which one I was going to choose, the amazing customer service. So just having that on their Facebook page they won business from it. The next department that can really get involved in your social media presence is HR. The biggest way for HR to use social media is to figure out if the right people want to work for your company. Now, a lot of this can be done through third-party sites that often are overlooked, whether that's your Facebook or Twitter page, and going through and finding what people are actually saying about your company. But then there are also sites that may or may not benefit your organization, depending on what it is. But look at sites like TripAdvisor and Yelp. You might be able to find a lot of information on your reputation in the community. So the questions for HR to ask would be, what's your reputation? And do the right people want to work for you? Why or why not? The next department that can really use social media and for listening and engaging is research and development. And I love this line. But really using social media to listen and find out what content seems popular, what challenges are people having, and what are people saying about your products and service. When you have all of this great, rich information, your R&D team can literally just go to town and figure out what they should be doing next. Next is sales. Next is operations. And the way I love operations using social media to listen is to find out if things are running smoothly and to find out where the glitches are. So a little bit about my backstory. Like I mentioned, I was a director of marketing in a hospitality company. So we had a lot of restaurants and hotels across the nation. And typically in the restaurant industry, when there's an issue, that issue either comes in terms of a food quality issue or a service type issue. So when we go on to the social media sites, we can kind of funnel those into, okay, is this food or is this service? And then our VP of operations was able to develop training programs to better address that issue and make sure that everyone was trained properly. So that is how operations can use social media for listening and engaging. Next is sales. And when I look at great salespeople, I always joke to people, I'm like, they're not even out selling. They're out going to happy hours and playing golf. And when we look at that, what they're actually doing is developing a relationship with people. They're there and they are 100% top of mind for that person when they do need your product or service. So the specific things to look at from the sales side is how are people phrasing their problems and what specific pain points do they have? When you do this, you gather so much information to prepare your sales team to sell your product, because we know in the way salespeople are trained, we typically come up with objections that a prospect might have. But if we know all of the specific objections they might have and then solutions or ways to work around that, we're going to move our prospect down the buying cycle. And then the last one, which most of you said that, I think 56% of you said that your marketing team was actually handling your social media already. So marketing is another department that can handle social media for your company. The best ways for marketing to use this is to find out where people are already spending their time. This is really crucial because it seems like we tend to have this misconception of if we build it, they will come. And I think a lot of us, when we start a Facebook page or a Twitter account, we find that it's really not true. Like, we really have to work it to get people to come to our page. So many of you may have even experienced it yourself where you've had that happen. So the solution is to get your company in front of people where they're already spending their time. So finding out who in your community has influence, where they're already spending their time, who's doing the talking, where people are talking about your company, your industry, and your competitors are all ways to figure out where you should also be. Maybe it's places that your company should be featured, or maybe it's places that your company should be a guest blogger, or maybe it's people, celebrity type people, or just industry leaders that your company should be partnering with. You'll be able to find tons of this information just by listening. And the other thing marketing can do is look for which social platforms your fans are congregating on, where most of them spending most of their time. I read this article probably about 2 months ago now. Some of you may have seen it. It had a really great title. It said, "Will Marketing Muck Up Social?" And I think that was part of the reason I clicked on it. I was just really interested in the title. But it was a Forbes article from Shell Israel. And he points to a couple of really interesting things. And kind of now that we've been in the social media world for a few years now, most of us are very active. Most of our companies probably at least have some sort of presence. I think he really pointed out something very interesting that we all need to take a look at for our company to make sure that we're still using social in the way that it's most effective. So the first thing he says is that social media is becoming transactional instead of conversational. And this struck me because he's saying that we're seeing companies use social media for self-promotion and making sales rather than giving our customers the platform to talk to us and for us to listen and engage. So when you think about it, say you have a product launch coming up. And when you think about it, on product launch day, if you say, "Here's our new product, come buy it," that single post probably isn't going to do you very much good. But what he's saying is take that transactional model and make it conversational. So you have a product launch coming up. So 90 days prior to the product launch, we want to be engaging our customers. We want to make sure that they're fully into that product launch. So things that you could do is show pictures of what's happening behind the scenes, show shipments of product coming in, show maybe a boardroom or a brainstorming session, maybe even let your fans vote on a logo or font. One thing that I've seen a few companies do really well is giving their fans an exclusive beta trial. So actually letting them run through the process and then asking them for input. And all of this, if you're doing this for 90 days leading up to the product launch, on product launch day you are going to get so much more benefit out of that. People already know about your product or service. They know the launch is coming up, and they're going to be so much more invested because they've been following you along for that whole 90 days. So that's what he's saying on transactional versus conversational. The next thing he says is that social media was organic and now it's moving to marketing, and we do see, I think 56 or 57% of the companies on here do have marketing handling their social media. And then the final thing was once canned conversation is now canned and on message. And so I just want to be a little bit clearer on that because I would imagine most of us are marketing professionals, and 100% marketing plays a crucial role in social media, particularly building the platform and integrating social into the other marketing things that you're already doing. But if your presence is solely coming from marketing, you're losing really, really rich opportunity to listen and engage with your fans. Candid conversation really is what makes social media so special. It's that authentic voice that we want. It's that real person. We all like to do business with people we know, like, and trust, and just seeing that come across in a social media page makes things so much more engaging. I think we're all trained and sophisticated enough now that when the message consistently comes from marketing, when everything is perfect, the images are perfect, and even the writing is perfect. We kind of know that, and it starts to feel just a little bit more canned, and I think we start to get less engagement on our posts than we would if we were just also incorporating a more authentic presence. So that's reason number one, that I believe your best social media team is your current workforce. Reason number two is to bridge the gap. To bridge the gap between local and either agency or corporate. And I can share a little bit of an embarrassing story, I suppose, from my past. When I was a director of marketing, I was actually hired for this position right out of college. So I was very young and green, and my joke is always, maybe we made a mistake in hiring me. A director of marketing is a pretty big position for someone right out of college. So that's my little joke. But my story is this. So it was at that hospitality company, and I would come up with really great engaging campaigns to try and get more guests in the door. And there was this time we came up with a campaign. Launch day was Monday. We went through that, and I watched the numbers for a day or two, and I didn't see anything happening. I'm like, okay, why aren't these numbers moving at all? And I called the GM and asked what was going on with the campaign, what people were saying about it, and what he said to me was, oh, I didn't know that started already. And my point is, if the people on the front lines of your company don't know about things going on the marketing side, it's truly going to crush the campaign. There has to be that frontline presence. And so, it's definitely a learning experience for me, and I got it. And now I can help spread this message too, that we need to give our teams the right tools and training to help make our campaigns even more successful. So when you think of your company, or if you are from a marketing agency, if you think of your client's company, does that company have brokers or branches, maybe some sort of division, maybe even a sales team? Whatever we call that division, there needs to be people trained to help lead the social presence, to give your social media that authentic looking voice, and to really listen and engage. I actually saw this stat recently, and maybe some of you did too, from Radian 6, and they say it costs 5 to 10 times more to bring in a new customer than to retain an old one. We should be using, so what I say is we should be using social to help keep those leads hot and to help move prospects through the marketing funnel and closer to a buying decision. One way that we can do that is to upload photos of our product or service in creative ways. And I love this one, and you'll notice this presentation is actually pretty hospitality heavy, and it's honestly just where my background is, but this 100% works for B2C and B2B organizations. So when this picture here that you're seeing on your screen, this is at one of my restaurant clients. It's at their location, and this photo was taken by one of the people on their social media team. So what I say to do is to delegate staff to make things personal. And when you're able to upload photos of your product in a creative way, you get this really, really cool engagement, and you get to market your company from just a really unique way. Like, this is something that actually happened. In this restaurant, they're definitely a very nice restaurant in town, but when they posted this picture of an engagement on their page, one, they got tons of engagement out of it. Two, they definitely positioned themselves in their market as, hey, this is the special occasion place. This is the place to go for proposals, for engagements, for anniversaries or weddings. And quite honestly, they do charge a premium price for that. They charge more for their great experience. And then the last thing is three. I mean, don't you just think they made lifelong fans out of this cute little couple that got engaged there? This couple was so grateful that their moment was captured. So anyway, that's one thing, that having your actual staff produce content for your social media pages will help your brand. The next thing to do is upload photos that feature your customers. And like in my experience, when I'm working from the corporate level supporting 30 restaurants and hotels across the nation, some of these things are definitely things that I can't capture on a regular daily or weekly basis. So having this team delegated to capture these moments is so very special. Another client of mine, they actually are a restaurant in the Midwest in Iowa, so hence the pig. So anyway, this little pig, it's a cement pig, and it stands outside of their front door. But so many people sit on it outside of their restaurant. And if you're from the Midwest, you might actually recognize this restaurant. But so many people sit on this little pig that they have to repaint it a couple times every year. And so we thought, you know what, why not just let people sit on the pig, but make sure that there's someone to capture those special moments, because those pictures are just so cute. And it 100% frames that restaurant as the fun family place to go. The next thing in this reason number 2 that your best social media team is your current workforce is the ability to ask questions and really take that feedback and do something with it. And these are questions posted by the social media teams at some of my clients' restaurants. So the first question is such a simple question, but around the holiday time, my favorite cookie cutter shape is blank. This question, it got 13 comments. It was a really great little engagement type question. But the reason they were asking it was because they were having a kids cooking class coming up, and they just wanted to do some fun things with cookie cutters. And they just, kind of pulled that information in. So I thought that was really clever. The next one that I have on here is, it's National Philanthropy Day. What's your favorite charity? So 11 people did comment on that. I thought it was interesting because, as these companies are trying to get more involved in the community, it's great to look back at this list and see what people in their community are saying that they're already involved with. The last one that I'll show you is just my favorite Thanksgiving dish is blank. That one was just a few weeks ago. But I mean, just a clever little way to try and get more engagement out of their posts. So that was the number 2 reason that your best social media team is your current workforce, and that is to bridge the gap between corporate and the front lines, or between the agency and the front lines, depending on how your company is structured. Reason number 3, and this is going to sound silly, so I'm going to have to explain, but reason number 3 is that you don't have to do it by your alone. So let me just say, so I'm a mom of 2. I have a 1-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy. And I don't know how many of you on the call have kids, especially young boys. I think they can be a little bit of a stinker. And so I'll just share this story that, sometimes he has his trains and trucks and all of this in his room making a complete mess, and I'll come in and say, okay, it's time to clean up. And he's like, no, Mommy, I want to do it by my alone. I'm like, okay. So I come back 10 minutes later, and he's frustrated, and the mess is too big, and all of this, and finally he asks for help. And I think this is such a true, I mean, 1, it's a little bit of a silly personal story, but 2, it's such a true parallel to social media. I mean, we are still very, very new in using social media as an avenue for marketing, as one of our tools, right? So there's so many new networks, so many changes. I mean, who isn't frustrated by Facebook changing something every week, right? So I think this is so true. If we can really dig in and ask for some help where we need it, and I'm pointing to, we really, maybe on the marketing side, we don't need as much help building communities for our fans, or for our clients, or for our company, but where we need help is in that rich, authentic content. So reason number 3 is you don't have to do it by your alone. Social media is so complex. It's ever changing. So I think we should give our teams the best tools and the training to get this right. That way you can amplify what you're already doing. Now, people really, really like to, when we talk about that content, people really love to see pictures or content with some of your company's key players. Now, I'm in the Denver market, and obviously there are key players in terms of the Denver Broncos or the Denver Nuggets, but we need to think, who are the key players in our company? Whether you're in a manufacturing company, it doesn't matter. Even if it's a B2B tech company, that doesn't matter. There are key people that your fans will be really interested in knowing more about. And this screenshot here just shows a couple from, again, another restaurant. So this is actually Chef Rod. He is in the Madison market, and he just has one of those personalities that people really, really gravitate to. And you'll see, somebody sent him a bouquet of flowers for making an amazing dinner. And in the bottom right, you'll see him at a cooking class. And I will just say, people love seeing pictures of him. Every time a picture is posted, it's definitely something that has a lot of engagement. So my challenge to you would be, figure out who in your company can kind of be the, if you don't already know, who in your company can be the face, that you can kind of make a key player to make sure that you're getting that rich content. And so just a little bit more in recap, I suppose, the benefits of a social media team, an internal social media team, is to modernize your communication, maybe not just internally, but also with the public. You get to empower the staff. And this one, let me spend just another minute on this one here, because some of my clients actually use this as a really, really great empowerment tool for the staff. Some of them have programs, and you might too, something like managers in training, managers in development, or rising star programs. And they use this as a piece or a new responsibility to give those people who are maybe more at an entry-level position but doing an amazing job, and try and get them through the process of working their way up to a management position. So I think this is incredibly empowering. The other thing on that is, whenever we ask the question, who on the team wants to be involved in social media, there's one of two responses. Either you get nothing because they don't know what all that entails. Like, who wants to take on social media is a pretty big question. So my suggestion is to make it smaller. Who wants to be involved in Facebook in 5 minutes a day, or some quicker program where it actually feels manageable? And then you are going to empower your staff. They're going to be really excited to do one post a day. And the next benefit of an internal social media team is that you get to build relationships with customers. So if you're 100% outsourcing your social media to an agency or to someone else, you're missing that. And that's, I know it's kind of cut and dry, but you really are missing that. So that is the benefit of an internal social media team. And you might be thinking, that all sounds great, Katrina, how do I start? So I actually do have, I won't get into it now, but I do have a PDF that I am more than willing to share with anyone on this call. And it's called The 7 Key Steps to a Social Media Team. And it outlines basically how to select your team. It also outlines what to include in the social media policy and how to set some of your goals to make sure that your team is really excited and fully engaged in doing this. But besides that, I am on for more questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Katrina. We do have some great questions coming in. So the first question I have for you is from Heather, and she wanted to know, what are your thoughts on CEOs or C-level people using personal Twitter accounts to tweet out maybe to their followers, and how do you think that benefits the company?
Mm-hmm. I love CEOs or C-level executives using social media, but my hesitation with it being from their personal account is that it's probably not driving traffic, maybe especially if you have an e-commerce site. You need to really think through, is that driving traffic back to my website, or is it getting us closer to our social media goals? A lot of, and it also depends on how well known that person is. What sort of following do they have? Do they have a massive following, maybe like a like an NFL celebrity, or is it just a tiny little following of 200 people or something like that? So I suppose my suggestion would be, one, look at what kind of following. Look at, two, how is that helping your organization? And then three, how could you actually just pull that person right into your social media page? So maybe instead of having them share their vision for the company or whatever it is on their personal page, have them do it on their business page.
Okay, great. My next question is from Erin, and she wants to know, how do you handle social media users on a business level for something that would be a heavily regulated industry? So examples are like mortgage services, investments.
Yeah, and I mean definitely probably healthcare and legal would fall into that question. So how do you handle social media users on a business level? I think it starts with a lot of training. So obviously, there's going to be confidential information that can't be shared. So your team 100% needs to be trained on that. And they also need to be, sometimes when we do these social media policies, we say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And then it truly stops your team in their tracks because they don't know what they can do. So maybe it's training on what not to do, but on the flip side of that, training on what are some really great examples of things to do.
Okay, my next question is from Lindsay, and she wants to know, what's the best way to coordinate posts within a team that could be across multiple departments? And also to kind of add to that question, how do you prevent your social media channels, maybe you're on more than just a couple, how do you prevent those from being siloed within the organization?
Okay, so let me get to the first part first. So what's the best way to coordinate posts within a social media team across multiple departments? A lot of times there is kind of a hesitation in, I only want to post once a day or something like that so that we don't have too many posts. I will say most industry leaders are recommending that you post between 3 and 5 times a day. So that usually does take some of the pressure off, I don't want to post too much. The next part is, you can definitely use third-party tools like Buffer or Hootsuite to schedule posts if you wanted to do that, if you felt like your team was going to be maybe abundantly active. But I will say in my experience, it doesn't happen very often that there's kind of a double up of posts within a couple of minutes. So I think you're probably pretty set on that. And then to address the part about silos, typically what I recommend is, like I mentioned with the hospitality industry, there is a brand and then there's multiple locations of that brand. So I've dealt with a lot of silos, and where I've seen the most success is when the brand bands together and there's just an official brand page, and that is where all of the different locations or the different departments or silos that you would call come and do their posts. And all they do is just at the end of their post, if it's something event specific or something like that where people need to know the location, they just tag it with the location. If it's not something location specific, then it fits in just fine with the brand page. But for a lot of companies, in my experience, especially those with smaller budgets, and I think a lot of us work with small budgets in the social media realm and trying to make the most of it. So I think when you take your resources and really focus on one page rather than X number of different locations, I think you're going to get better results.
Okay, great. And then when you are pushing content, you talked a little bit about that, and I think it was rule number 2 and 3, or reason number 2 and 3. What's the ideal ratio of content to push? So, say if you're AMA like we are, we have events and everything that we want to promote, but there's also obviously great content that we want to share with our followers. So how do you figure out the ratio of promos versus content in your social media channels?
Sure. I usually use a rule, and I call it the 80-20 rule. And basically 80% of your effort should be on listening, engaging, and relationship building. The other 20 is self-promotion. And the reason one, I know that we, and especially AMA, so you have events that people need to know about. So if you weren't telling anyone, you probably wouldn't be using social media effectively. But on the other side of it is if 80% of your posts are something very engaging, then when you do the self-promotional posts, more people are going to see that. Your edge rank scores are going to be higher, and you're going to show up in more news feeds if you can do the 80% where people are very, very engaged.
Okay, great. I want to go back to your last slide here because you did talk briefly about how to start, and obviously we'll be sharing that PDF with everyone. We'll be sending that as a link within the follow-up, just in case you were wondering how you could get that PDF that you're going to be sharing with all of the attendees today, Katrina. But the questions I have, leading up to that, you're talking about how do you start. My first question is, how do you get your team involved? So, maybe somebody's just starting out with a program, or maybe it's just one person that's been doing it the whole time, and they want to make it a team effort. How do you get people involved?
Usually I start with one of two methods, and it kind of depends on the type of company and the size and all of that. But the first method is for maybe a management person to identify key people who they think would be really great at this. And that can be, and key people at all different levels. And then you go to those people and ask if they'd like to participate. The other way is to, whatever your corporate communication channel is, whether that's emailing or a newsletter or something, kind of do a call, I don't know what the right word is, not call for speakers, but a call for participants, and outline what the social media vision is for this company, and just ask, does anyone want to participate in this? Does anyone want to get involved?
Okay, and in your experience, do people want to get involved? Do they want to add this to a list of things that they're doing, maybe to either promote events or do any kind of marketing initiatives?
Yes, I've never had any issue with getting people involved. Every time I've asked, people have always been really excited. I think part of that goes to making sure that you outline what sort of responsibility you're asking from them. So we definitely don't want to give one person the entire responsibility of handling social media, but if you break it down into something like, we just want one post a day from you, you're going to have a ton of people want to get involved.
Okay. And if you do have that team involvement, obviously we could do a whole webinar, probably a whole series on social media measurement, but how do you get that team together then to report on their successes, whether it's engagement or if you really want hard numbers? How do you make sure that they come together to, or at least keeping track of what it is that they're doing and how successful it is?
Yeah, usually I'd recommend monthly calls, whether they're monthly meetings, whether they're Skype calls or just an actual in-person meeting, again, depending on the type of company you have and how many different departments or locations you have. I don't know exactly what's feasible. But I do recommend a monthly sort of format, and usually I would say break it down into 3 different categories. So I would say first start with best practices. So what really great things is everybody doing? Like what were the best posts, so that they know what to do more of. The second piece would be to troubleshoot. Where are they having issues? Are they having issues finding time in their day, or are they having issues developing rich content? Like what problems are holding them up? And then the third thing is to talk about hot topics. So what sort of whether they're events, product launches, maybe even holidays, what sort of things are coming up on the calendar that are natural for them to talk about.
Okay, great. Great advice. And as we wrap up here, my question as we close out is, everything we talked about seems to be pretty B2C focused, but can you also do this in the B2B side of things?
I definitely think you can do it in the B2B side. Especially on featuring your key players and listening and engaging. I think that's where you have the most success. And even as we talked about with product launches, it might sound boring to you to show a picture of a brainstorming session, but people really like to see that. We all like that. We like behind the scenes. We like to feel kind of like we just got a sneak peek behind the curtain.
Okay, great. Well, Katrina, I think we've gotten to all of our audience questions, and I want to thank you for a great presentation, and of course, for answering all of those questions. If you do have additional questions or you're looking for some kind of advice on social media and involving your team, go ahead and contact Katrina at the handle Katrina Padron on Twitter. If you have general AMA questions, those can be sent to myself at alib@ama.org. And of course, please use the hashtag AMAMOW if you are going to post to social media about today's session. Again, like I said, we're going to be sending out follow-up later today, and that will include a link to a recording of this webinar, link to the 7 key ways to a social media team that Katrina is going to be sharing with all of our attendees. And then you'll also get a link to a PDF of today's slide presentation. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. And that ends today's session for today. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.